Alcohol, I hate you. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I wanted to take a quick second to explain what is going on here. So I have decided to start a new series that will probably have an episode once every month, maybe. And it's called Chats with Dalia. I'm really excited about it because it's basically going to be a platform where we can chat and have more in-depth discussions about things that are really, really important. Thoughts that are on my mind that I just feel like I'd love to discuss. And the intention is that, we can have a little bit more discussion and conversation and just for it to spark some thoughts. And I'd love for it to be a place where people can even connect in the comments and continue discussions. I know that a lot of you guys have followed me for DIYs. I love DIYs. That's the majority of what I'm going to continue to do. But it's just that me as a person, I have specific things that just are on my mind that I just want to talk about, that are things I've been reflecting on for either a lot in the current time or just over time a lot. That's why they're going to span so many different topics. And in this instance, the topic is alcohol. I know that this is a really heavy topic. This is not intended at all whatsoever to be a judgment type of conversation. That's never my intention. That's not how I feel. And I think that you'll see through my story and my experiences that have led me to making this video that is also the case. So never feel that at all. And without further ado, I'm just going to get into it. I'm going to start by sharing a little bit about my experiences with alcohol and what kind of led me along quite a path with how I feel about it. So I started drinking when I was in grade 10, and it really started just as something that I did with my friends because drinking is cool. That's just what you do. You party on the weekends with your friends, and that's what the cool kids will do. I wasn't part of a cool crowd, but that's just the general mindset that was going through my brain at that age, at 15 or whatever age that was. I went to university, and through university, I continued on that path of partying and of drinking, and I probably drank 2 to 3 times a week. I never drank to the point of blacking out because my genetics physically wouldn't have let me do that because I would be sick before I would black out. So I didn't typically over drink either, but I did drink in terms of having fun, partying, fitting in with everyone. And it's very much so I felt programmed to want to do that. No one convinced me. I just felt oh, that will be fun, and I have fun when I do it with my friends, and that's great. So I drank pretty regularly for partying purposes for probably 6 years, and everything was kind of fine and dandy. But obviously I've had some experiences that made me realize how not okay it can be. Basically what happened was I had the experience of watching someone who is extremely loved by me, someone who I love the most of the most of the most, go down a path of alcoholism. And I think that really made me have to think about things and educate myself in certain things that fundamentally changed the way that I felt about alcohol. Sometimes with alcoholism, you really can't tell as a loved one that it is alcohol at the beginning. And slowly, it becomes more and more clear. And sometimes that can happen over years. And in my experience, when you watch someone go from being level-headed and kind and beautiful on the inside and beautiful on the outside and being an amazing person to completely changing because of alcohol, it is the most heartbreaking thing I have ever experienced. I think to date, it is probably the saddest thing I've ever experienced. And based on that alone, I wish alcohol didn't exist. Obviously, I believe that underneath someone becoming an alcoholic or having a substance abuse problem is actually something else that's hurting and something else that is wrong, and that alcohol becomes almost like a coping mechanism. And this is part of a huge reason why I wanted to make this video, is because alcohol becomes used as a coping mechanism. And how alcoholism actually starts is very linked to socially acceptable, culturally normalized, societally normalized ways of using alcohol to cope. And what I mean by that is, like, in popular media and just societally in general, it's very normal to have a bad day at work and come home and have a glass of wine or have a beer, or feel kind of sad and just want to chill out a bit and take the edge off before going to sleep and having a glass of wine. You know, I went to an Alcoholics Anonymous friends and family session. I've been to a couple sessions. And what they basically explained is that when you're drinking for any reason that's outside of the taste, so i.e. if you are drinking for that feeling, for the purpose of letting loose, for the buzzed feeling, for any reason other than taste, it is actually alcohol misuse. So not alcohol abuse, but alcohol misuse. And that was the first time I had ever heard of that or thought of that before. Like, it was just like so normal for people to think, oh, I didn't do well on this exam, just wrote it, I know I didn't do well, let's go out and party. Like, that was normal, but that's not normal. It's sad to me because someone doesn't just wake up, you know, one day and decide, oh, I'm going to abuse alcohol. I think it can be this slow burning effect that maybe starts out because you drink to party with friends, and then it continues on into I'm having a trouble dealing with work anxiety and meeting with clients, so I just want to have a beer when I go to this client event, or, you know, I had a bad day and I want to have a glass of wine to just take the edge off. And all of a sudden it goes from you're drinking with friends to sometimes you're just drinking by yourself, and that can just become a problem. I knew all of this intellectually. I had gone to the meetings about this. I had done a lot of research about it. And even so, I can say that I even went through a bout where I realized I was in a weird cycle with alcohol. My husband and I, when we were dating, we actually broke up for a year, and I was having like one alcoholic beverage after work to just kind of take the edge off and help me relax and stuff like that. And after that went on for a period of time, I looked back and was like, holy crap, it's exactly what I learned about, that's how it can start, and it was playing out in my life. I've never been an alcoholic. I've never actually had a substance abuse problem. But I think that's a great example of, even when you know that can be how it starts, it can still be something you can slip into. And that's part of the reason, like, I wanted to have this video and I wanted to talk about this. And I also wanted to mention that as someone who does not drink personally anymore, because alcohol is so romanticized. You know, you're having a nice fancy dinner with your loved one, oh, let's have alcohol, or, you know, you get a promotion, let's have a drink to celebrate, or at weddings you have champagne, or it's so romanticized that even as someone that does not drink but that used to drink, I still sometimes have that feeling of like, oh, this would be romantic, you know, on our vacation to have sparkling wine. And I think for me to really be aware of the fact that what I am wanting in that moment is to take the edge off, is to have that feeling. It's not just for the taste of sparkling wine. I just wanted to highlight like how powerful it is that societally it's so normal to have alcohol for reasons other than the taste, even though it's known, although not to many people, but it's known that that is alcohol misuse. Now, one thing that I think is really interesting is I was actually trying to Google about this a couple months ago, about like having alcohol for any reason other than taste being alcohol misuse. I Googled about it and could not find a single article about it. But then I went to Yahoo and it like was one of the top articles. And it made me question, like, where are we getting like information? Why is it that this is one of the first things that I was told in an Alcoholics Anonymous friends and family session? But like on the internet, that's not what's getting propagated. All that gets propagated on the internet is around heavy alcohol use. So like if you're binge drinking several times a week. And I just think that it's, what's scary is that that's not the root problem. It doesn't start with someone that's just binging. it starts with using alcohol as a coping mechanism. So a couple years ago, I remember I was searching about alcohol, trying to understand a little bit more about alcoholism. And I came across the American Cancer Society, I think it is. They pretty blatantly state that like alcohol is linked to cancer. And I remember reading that article and thinking, well, that's weird. Like, I didn't know that, but whatever, I guess. Like, that can't, whatever. That's like only if you're a super heavy drinker, or for some reason, because I just didn't see that popularized very much. I just didn't pay that much attention to it. And the other week, I was doing a DIY project. I decided I wanted to listen to a podcast just to entertain myself. I never listen to podcasts, very, very infrequently, but I happened to open up the app and this episode popped up from a podcast I had never listened to before about alcohol, and I decided to listen to it. Listening to it was what was a serious catalyst in me making this video. The idea of filming this video, like I could not get it out of my head since I listened to this podcast, because I felt like there was so much on like a medical level that just is unknown and was unknown to me. So I wanted to share some of the things that I learned about alcohol and the effects on the body. So the podcast is called The Huberman Lab. It's hosted by Dr. Andrew Huberman. He is a neuroscientist and a professor in the Department of Neurobiology at the Stanford University School of Medicine. I'm going to link his podcast episode down below in case you are interested in watching it. I am in no way a professional. I'm just trying to explain some of the things that I learned, and I will point you to his podcast if you want to learn more. He has the places where things are like linked to studies and stuff like that. So I just wanted to share some of the correlations that I learned about that kind of freaked me out. The first thing is that alcohol is a toxin to the body. I didn't know that. Alcohol is a poison. I just simply didn't know that. When we get the feeling of feeling intoxicated or feeling drunk, it's actually our body reacting to a poison, and that's how it's reacting. A lot of times we drink because we're stressed, and alcohol actually increases the amount of cortisol that is released. This has a direct impact on stress and actually makes our body more stressed, even when we're not drinking. A lot of what Dr. Huberman focused on was how, it's kind of what I was saying earlier about how a lot of what you find when you're Googling about this and try and understand it, or just societally how it's portrayed, is that the bad effects of alcohol only come if you are a binge drinker, if you drink excessive amounts. And a lot of what his podcast was actually focusing on was that there's a lot of bad impacts even when you're not an excessive drinker, you're just a moderate drinker who drinks chronically. And a lot of what he talked about was this notion of just one drink a day. Even just one drink a day can have a really large impact. So for example, the impact on cortisol and stress, that could just be if you had one drink a day, like one glass of wine a day. A lot of the segment was actually focused on cancer. So that cues in what I saw on the American Cancer website. There is a direct tie with cancer, specifically breast cancer, where it's a very noticeable increase in correlation between the more that you drink alcohol and breast cancer, which I found very alarming. I didn't know that. There's several other types of cancer that are linked to alcohol consumption as well. The way that it impacts the body in regards to how it has an impact on cancer is twofold. Alcohol causes gene mutation, which allows tumors to grow. Sorry if I'm misrepresenting this. This is just what I gathered. So it allows cancers to grow more. So that's one bad aspect, but then it also has an impact on the cells in our immune system that would fight the growth of cancer and cancer tumors. So as a result, causes it both to grow more and also decreases our immune system's ability to fight that growth on its own. That's kind of alarming. He said that epidemiologists, when they try and compare the impact of alcohol, one glass of wine, one beer per day, to cigarettes, they say the impact is about the same as 10 cigarettes. I found that absolutely shocking. I found it kind of sad that like for cigarettes, there's packaging that says that this is what it can cause, and these can be the outcomes, and that's legally required on packaging, but there's no like sharing of this knowledge at all whatsoever for alcohol. Like, it's nowhere to be found. At least I had no idea about this. I knew this one. Sadly, chronic alcohol consumption has a direct link on the amount of brain matter that we have, i.e. that it can reduce the amount of brain matter. And actually neurosurgeons and neurospecialists frequently say that when they see patients that have a reduction in brain matter, they often question if this person is an alcoholic, which I knew that from before. Alcohol has an ongoing impact on rational thought and impulsivity. I believe that's even when someone is not drinking. It has an impact on the quality of sleep. So I think sometimes, like even personally with me, when I used to drink and when I went through that bad time, it might be like a glass of wine to be able to sleep better, but actually it has a negative impact on the quality of sleep. Like there's so many negative health impacts that are covered in that podcast with the research that proves it. And I just think even if it was a fraction of that, I think it's super alarming. And I'm not here to judge you in any way whatsoever. I hope that you see that from me sharing my own personal experiences and like the fact that I personally did drink for a very long time. The fact that even though I don't drink now, I still get caught in the glamorization of it from time to time. You know, I have no intention to ever judge anyone who is drinking. I just know that drinking as a coping mechanism can lead to so much that's really bad, and that as a coping mechanism, it doesn't really help to fix the root problems and the root causes and the root issues that are going on underneath the surface. There are ways to heal the things that are going on underneath the surface that could significantly help that. It kind of breaks my heart a little bit that there is so much negative association with alcohol on a medical aspect, but yet it's really not shared from the government. It's not shared in liquor stores. It's not shared those negative implications, and that all that gets shared is drink responsibly and don't drink and drive. I kind of wish I had known when I was in grade 10, in the very least, the impacts of even drinking 7 drinks total per week that could have on my body, and that could have towards having cancer and different things like that. And I also wish that I had been like, that the message had been like drilled into my head about drinking for anything other than taste, drinking for the feeling, drinking because you're stressed, drinking because of anxiety, that is the beginning of what can be a problem. So I want to thank you guys so much for chatting with me today about this topic. I know that it's heavy. I felt like with the thoughts and experiences that I had and some of the learnings that I had over time, this is just a topic I had to talk about. Again, this is no judgment. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying that I wish that my grade 10-year-old self and my grade 12-year-old self and my first year university and third year university, fourth year university, when I was at work events and I would get anxious and want to have a drink, like I wish that I knew that that was an indication of something. And I wish I just could have been more informed when I made decisions for myself, even if I made the same decisions. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys. I will see you next week. Next week is not going to be a chat video, but hopefully I will have more chats as well in the future. If there's anything you guys want to add to the conversation, please feel free to leave a comment down below. I love you guys so much.